Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wednesday, May the 25th edition of the Bottom Line Lexington podcast. It's decision day for UK basketball. There are two names on everybody's mind here in Lexington, and those names are Marcus Lee and Isaiah Briscoe. As we tape this on Wednesday morning, there's still no word over whether these guys will be going pro, whether they're coming back to Kentucky, or whatever they decide to do. We have no word yet. As we've talked about on this show many times, Marcus Lee should be coming back to school. In his last 23 games at Kentucky, he scored double digits twice. He fouled out 6 times. That's not an NBA player. In the 100 games he played at UK, the highest scoring game was his very first one, his freshman year. And Isaiah Briscoe, you can talk about wingspan, you can talk about athletic ability and defense all you want, but a kid that shoots 46% free throws and 13% three-pointers is not an NBA player, no matter how great he is defensively. So the numbers say they'd be foolish to go pro. The draft experts say they'd be foolish to go pro. The only people who don't believe it are the self-delusional kids themselves. Bottom line, we'll find out today if these kids make the right choice and go back to school. But it's amazing what money and pride does to these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids and the wrong people chirping in their ears. We will get to the Jeff Borzello article now. As most of you know by now, Jeff Borzello at ESPN came out with an article yesterday that was detailing underachieving teams in college basketball. And he listed Kentucky #1, along with LSU, UNLV, North Carolina State, UCLA, teams that aren't really big-time players in college basketball these days, but teams that have gotten a big recruit here and there, but just haven't done anything with them. Now, if you're going to compare underachieving teams, here on the Bottom Line, we do it by the numbers. We don't do it by recruiting. That's just conjecture. That's just things that speculation. That's things that have been made up in people's heads. Oh, this guy's good. This guy isn't good. Scalabrine is Exhibit A on all of this. So the bottom line, we look at things sabermetrically. We look at things with historical and statistical data. We don't use conjecture. We don't use recruiting rankings, 5-star versus 4 stars. That's all crap, speculation, and conjecture. Exhibit A, Scalabrine. He was either the #1 or #2 player coming into college last year. Was he good for Kentucky last season? No, he was terrible. 6 points, 3 rebounds, and he didn't play in any pressure-packed situation. So don't sit there and tell me that these recruiting rankings are the end-all, be-all. So what I used, and I went back to 2010, which is Cal's first year at UK, first year of the decade. I used 3 criteria: preseason rankings, where they were seeded in the NCAA tournament, and when they have eventually lost, were they favored in Las Vegas to win? And that's how I looked at things, using those 3 criteria every single year. So is Kentucky an underachiever? Yes, they are an underachiever. 6 out of the 7 years under Cal, they've been a preseason top 4 team. And every year they've lost in the tournament, even the year they went to the NIT, all 7 years, they were favored to win every time they lost in the tournament. Except, of course, the 2012 championship season. Only 2 of the 7 years could you make an argument that Kentucky overachieved. That's the 2011 Final Four team with Brandon Knight and Josh Harrelson, and that's the 2012 national championship team. Every other year, you can make arguments that Kentucky underachieved. Oh, but what about 2014 when they were an 8 seed and made it to the championship game? Yes, I took that into consideration, and that is a plus point for them. But you also have to remember, they were preseason #1 in the country that year. And they were favored in the national championship game by 3 points and still lost to Connecticut. Every year they lost in the tournament. To West Virginia. Both years to Connecticut. To Wisconsin. This year to Indiana. Heck, even in the NIT to Robert Morris. Every year in Las Vegas, Kentucky was favored to win those games. Once Kentucky gets to the tournament, though, 3 out of 6 years, they've outperformed their seed. But those preseason rankings is where they get killed. The last 4 years especially. The last 4 years, they've been ranked 3rd, 1st, and 2nd, respectively. It's tough to measure up to those expectations every year. Now, I compared them to Duke in terms of overachieving. Kentucky's a much bigger underachiever than Duke is. Even though Duke had catastrophic losses to Lehigh and to Mercer, they won 2 national championships. And both years they won their national championships, they were preseason ranked number 9 in 2010, ranked number 5 in 2015. So they outperformed their preseason ranking, something Kentucky has proven very difficult to do. But the team and the coach that gets the biggest slide on all this in terms of underachieving, it's Kansas. Kentucky's a big-time underachiever, but Kansas is even more of an underachiever, and it's not even close. In the last 7 years, Bill Self has been a number 1 or number 2 seed every single year. They've only played up to that seed one time. That was the year they made the national championship game against Kentucky. And like Kentucky, every year in the NCAA tournament when they lose, they are favored to win, including twice when they were double-digit favorites against Northern Iowa and against VCU. Kansas has been a preseason top 10 team 6 times in 7 years, and they failed to live up to expectations every single year. The only exception, again, being the 2012 team that played Kentucky for the national championship. So the bottom line on all this is, Jeff Borzello is right. Kentucky is a big underachiever, but he's using the wrong criteria to judge and make an argument. Using recruiting rankings is flawed logic. It's inherently wrong. Using objective and not subjective material makes for a much better argument and proves your point much better. Using preseason polls, using seeding by the NCAA committee, and using point spreads from Las Vegas covers every angle on a numerical and statistical basis. And using those criteria, Kansas is a much bigger disappointment than Kentucky. But having said that, Kentucky is still a huge underachiever, just not as bad as Kansas. As we talked about very slightly yesterday, Exaggerator is in New York for the Belmont, and Nyquist is out of the Belmont. If you have any talent whatsoever, can you juggle? Are you a mime? Can you do magic tricks? I suggest you go to NBC today and apply for some kind of position because they're going to need filler material for this Belmont Stakes. Having said that, television ratings for the Preakness up 6% this year over last year. I was shocked to read that. Reds lose again late last night at Chavez Ravine in Los Angeles, 8-2 to the Dodgers. That's 9 losses in a row for the mighty Big Red Machine. Last 2 games in LA, Reds have 2 runs, 5 hits, and 6 errors. Now on pace for 109 losses. I knew a couple of weeks ago we were talking about this pace. I knew they could get back over 100. I didn't think they'd get to 109 though. This team is so bad. 3-16 on the road. They started 5-1. They're 10-30 since. Rookie Daniel Wright, first major league start, 5 innings, 3 earned runs. Reds threw out 5 pitchers last night. Only one of them was on their opening day roster. But Brian Price, the genius and mastermind that he is, tried to juggle that lineup last night, putting Joey Votto up to second, which is where he should be batting all along. He's perfect number 2 hitter. And don't be shocked to see him doing that in Boston next year when Big Papi Ortiz retires and the Red Sox need a DH. You heard it here first. And they moved Billy Hamilton, thankfully, down to 7th in the lineup. Probably should be 8th or 9th. Brian Price, no matter what buttons he pushes, they just don't work out. God bless him. But hey, look at it like this. In 4 months, he could go look for another job. Adam Duvall, 9th home run on the year. Not bad return for that Mike Leake trade. But let's just see if it lasts. Funny moment, Yasiel Puig did not run out a hit last night and was promptly removed from the game. Probably the only excitement in that game whatsoever. Be interested to see if he's in the lineup tonight. Speaking of tonight, Reds and Dodgers finish up that 3-game series only because the league mandates that they have to play. Dan Straley, part of the Finnegan, Straley, and Pray for Rain Daily starting rotation for the Reds, 2.85. Scott Kazmir, first year of the National League, 5.23. Dodgers now won 3 in a row. Dodgers overall this year 24-23, but as a favorite, they're 21-14. Is this the worst it's been for the Reds in recent memory? No. Most people don't remember this, but last September, while everyone else was watching football, the Reds lost 13 in a row. As a dog this year, the Reds 8-29. Is there any hope for the Reds tonight? Straley has been a good pitcher of late. Last 3 starts, 1.59 ERA, Dodgers about a minus 170, which means you're going to get about plus 160 with the Reds. The Reds have the better starting pitcher tonight, but it takes a little bit more than that to beat the Dodgers in LA, especially when you've lost 9 in a row. I'll pass. Football news. Tyler Eifert, the Pro Bowl tight end for the Bengals, ironically injured in the Pro Bowl last year, had surgery on his injured ankle yesterday and will possibly miss the start of the season. How important was this kid last year to the Bengals? He only played 13 games. He still scored 13 touchdowns. That was 4th in all of professional football. So you fantasy players out there, still a wait and see on Tyler Eifert. Take away Rob Gronkowski from your tight end rankings. Who's a better tight end out there? Jimmy Graham is a no-show in Seattle. Who's out there? Eifert might be your second best fantasy tight end this year if he can make it to the field. More Bengals stuff. Le'Veon Bell comes out yesterday and says, the Bengals are dirty. They tried to hurt me. It's called tackle football. Of course they're trying to hurt you. You're an all-pro running back. You're one of the best running backs in the league on one of the best teams in the league. Of course they're trying to hurt you. Did they give you a wedgie too? NBA last night. Oklahoma City wins big again. Up 3-1. Going back to Golden State. More Draymond Green controversy. Did he try to trip up Enes Kanter? It looked like he did. He probably did. Crazy. Oklahoma City now minus 265 to win this series. By the way, this Enes Kanter deal. I don't understand how Big Blue Nation still claims Enes Kanter as one of their own when he never took the court, Kentucky. It kills me to this day. Oh, we love Enes Kanter here in Lexington. Why? He's one of us. No, he's not. I digress. They say Steph Curry is only playing at about 70%. Thanks for putting a number on it. But he also says, I'm not going out like this. Comparisons coming up now. Remember that New England Patriots team in 2007, the Spygate team, who went undefeated regular season, got to the Super Bowl undefeated, and lost the Super Bowl to the Giants? That's what this team's reminding me of. Charles Barkley said last night that the NBA is as bad as it's ever been. I don't know, Chuck. Do you remember the time before Larry Bird and Magic Johnson? Do you remember the time right after Michael Jordan retired? That was pretty bad stuff, too. We talked about Bradley Beal wanting a max contract a couple of days ago on this show. Tracy McGrady came out yesterday and said, if Bradley Beal gets a max contract, I'm coming out of retirement. He's right. Baseball, Jackie Bradley Jr. now with a 28-game hitting streak. We talked earlier in the week how Jackie Bradley, in 783 plate appearances before this season, had a career batting average of .213. It's like being at the craps table. You get a hot shooter, but eventually that 7 is coming. But hey, he's halfway to Joe DiMaggio. You think if Joe DiMaggio were alive, he'd be worried about this? Something tells me he couldn't care less. On this date in 1965, Muhammad Ali, then Cassius Clay, defeated Sonny Liston in their second fight to retain the heavyweight championship of the world. Now, what do most people remember about this fight? Here's what I know about this fight, and obviously it happened before I was born, but here's what I know about the fight. There were threats and rumors of it being fixed all the way around. They couldn't fight in Nevada. They couldn't fight in Florida. They couldn't fight in New York. They couldn't fight anywhere. So they had to fight in Maine. That was the only place that would take the fight. The fight lasts 1 round. You don't really know if Liston got hit or not. Maybe a phantom punch kind of thing. And then the world-famous picture of Muhammad Ali flexing his arm, kind of motioning to Liston to get up. And that's an iconic picture that if you've ever seen a picture of Muhammad Ali, I'm sure you've seen that picture. But that was 51 years ago today. All right, big news tonight, sports fans. It's the National Spelling Bee going on today. It'll be on ESPN at some point. And as a 2-time county spelling bee champion here in Kentucky, it's tough not to watch that spelling bee for at least a couple of minutes and just think, wow, these kids are really nerds. Now, if you want a real insight who these spelling bee people are, go back and Google Rebecca Sealfon. That's S-E-A-L-F-O-N. She was the champion in 1997. Only God knows where she's at today, but I still remember her from that spelling bee 19 years ago. You'll have to YouTube it. You'll have to look it up on YouTube yourself just to see it. It's out there. It's priceless. You remember the movie Ocean's 11? Well, the Hooters Sportsbook out on the Strip in Las Vegas was robbed on Monday night. They had a weapon, and they just took off on foot. with the money that they got. Now, there's no word on how much money they got, and we'll probably never know because, well, they don't want to be embarrassed out there. That's why we're only hearing about it today. Was George Clooney involved? Where's Brad Pitt when you need him? By the way, I've been to the Hooters Sportsbook, because if you go out to Las Vegas during the Super Bowl, during the NCAA tournament, and believe me, I've been out there during both more than once. That's me saying I'm an addicted sports gambler, but that's why you listen to the end of the show. Nevertheless, Hooters Sportsbook, it's no bigger than like most people's living room. I mean, it's very small. You've got the tables with the windows you can go up to. You've got maybe 2 or 3. You've got a couple of TVs behind the window. You got maybe 1 or 2 TVs in the sportsbook, and that's it. It's no bigger than most people's kitchen. I mean, it's a living room. The space at that place is saved for the tables, and rightly so. But you could go in and out of that Hooters Sportsbook like it's nothing. In fact, a few years ago on the Super Bowl, the MGM, I stay at the MGM. The MGM's right across the street from Hooters. You try to make a bet like on Super Bowl Sunday on anything, that's a half-hour wait just to get to the window. Whereas if you walk across the street, you can walk right up. So on days when it's way too many squares and the sharps need some action, you'll go to the sports book that just gets you in and out the quickest, providing they still have the same or better lines. But still, I can see this doesn't surprise me that the Hooters Sportsbook got robbed. It's like a little ma and pa organization over there. But I digress. You people who've been to Vegas, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, I want them to catch this guy, and then I want them to reveal how they actually ripped off a sports book in Vegas in this day and age. That's what I want to know. We talked about that Under Armour $280 million contract with UCLA yesterday and how ridiculous it was. Well, the UCLA quarterback, Josh Rosen, came out and said, yeah, we're still amateurs and we see none of it. He's absolutely right. Speaking of life on the West Coast, the Pac-12 has now agreed to both run and broadcast esports. That's where the world is going. You're looking to invest in something? Esports might be the way to go. I'm not kidding. If they had this 25 years ago when I was in college, good Lord, I would have made millions off playing Tecmo Bowl, as long as you gave me Bo Jackson. Miami Marlins are a piece of crap franchise. Now they're suing their former season ticket holders who failed to renew their season tickets. And the season ticket holders were like, we didn't get what we paid for. We were promised close parking places, buffets, a private entrance, and once the Marlins got these people to sign, they took all that away because they were cutting costs because nobody was coming to the games. Shockingly, there's no baseball fans in Miami, and there hasn't been since 1993 when the team first started. Couldn't see that coming, huh? But for a franchise to have to sue former season ticket holders, wow, you're desperate. You already ripped off taxpayers for a free stadium. What more do you want? Baylor University fired their president yesterday over these sexual assault scandal cover-ups. How does the president get fired, but yet that aqua velva wearing used car salesman Art Briles get a pass? Because he wins football games. Nothing more, nothing less. Article on ESPN today, can a kicker be the NFL Rookie of the Year? No. I don't care how good Robert Aguayo was at FSU. Let him go out there and miss a couple of kicks in the first couple of games. Watch that fan backlash. That's why you don't draft a kicker in the second round. Expectations. He misses one kick, they kill him forever. Okay, it's Mac Daddy Stogie time. NBA, Toronto, Cleveland. Cleveland, 10.5-point favorite tonight. By the way, the Dogs in the conference finals, 5-3 against the spread so far, so you're making some money. But this is not a time to take Toronto. It's either Cleveland or nobody tonight. The zigzag theory, going back to Cleveland, everything points in the Cavs' favor. This is a game I won't touch. A few baseball games I like today. A couple of these are going this afternoon, so hopefully you'll get this before first pitch. Kansas City, Minnesota, you got Dylan G for the Royals, 2.90. And Minnesota at 11-34. 3.30 ERA for their starter, Tyler Duffy. Twins have lost 3 in a row, 2-8 in their last 10. Royals finally catching fire, 7-3 in their last 10. And the Royals 5-0 against Minnesota this year. Tyler Duffy, 3.30 on the year, but his last 3 starts, his ERA's well over 4. Little apprehension about taking the Royals, now 3 games over, with Wade Davis throwing over 30 pitches last night, but I'll still trust Kelvin Herrera to close this one out. Give me the Royals as a slow dog tonight, about a plus 105. Give me them over Minnesota in Minnesota. And let's go to Chicago. Indians and White Sox, division rivals. White Sox 7 games over. Indians 4 games over. Jose Quintana for the White Sox, 1.98 has been great this year. Corey Kluber, former Cy Young winner, 4.10 for the Indians. Indians are the hotter team right now. Granted, they played the Reds 4 games last week, but still are the hotter team. 7-3 their last 10. White Sox floundering. Regression to the mean, coming back to where they should be. 3-7 in their last 10. Cleveland going for the sweep in this one. And if Cleveland wins this game, they'll be first place in their division. Cleveland's the better team. Give me Cleveland plus 110 tonight at Chicago. Corey Kluber over Jose Quintana. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Bottom Line Lexington podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at BottomLineLex. Send us an email anytime, bottomlinelex@gmail.com. And please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, may the winners be yours.